he was on his like self-discovery journey, and then they end up together and he goes on to another journey of self-discovery. And what is her self-discovery journey? So here we are, gathered today to discover the ultimate question. Is reading a waste of time? I'm doing this book tag, the Anti-Valentine's Day book tag. I'm also discussing things about something that made me think. It's a strange video. So I'm gonna do the Valentine's Day book tag and then the Anti-Valentine's Day book tag. Let's go first with a bang, which is favorite book couple ever. And I have it here, I have it prepared. The Foxhole Court. All for the Game series is my favorite series ever. And here we have Neil and Andrew, which are basically my favorite couple ever, favorite characters ever. I love them. It's such a strange dynamic between them two, which I've never read before. Whenever like there's a relationship in books, I need it to be like this. This is how much this book ruined me for all other relationships. This is the type of book that I read and reread whenever I'm stressed. So yes, definitely recommend. Next book, next question actually, is the relationship that never happened. And with that, I would go with Beartown, Benji and Amat. The two of them definitely had the potential to have the same relationship that was between like Andrew and Neil, because Benji was like Andrew, he was like a troublemaker. They also play sports, hockey, the same as Exie in the Foxhole Court. And Amat was this young like person, was he a young person, who was very fast in the sport and was a new guy there. And I thought that they would have like this type of dynamic, the same as Andrew and Neil from the Foxhole Court. They did not, however, they did not end up together. Well, the ship has sailed, or hasn't sailed. The next question is my crush. What is my crush? And to this I answer that my crush is always the book that I'm currently reading, and it's not really a crush, it's more of a intellectual appreciation, which sounds so fake, but it is true. I mean, you do appreciate intellectually some characters. Lord of the Rings. I like Frodo, I like Sam, I like Legolas, Aragorn, Gandalf. Am I crushing on Gandalf? Do I have a crush on Gandalf? I don't know. Legolas, Orlando Bloom is playing him in the movie. So next up we have worst relationship. The question about the worst relationship in books. And first I wanted to go with Sakura and Sasuke. I don't know, when I was like in middle school and high school I was reading this manga and I loved it. It's one of my favorite manga ever. But when thinking about Sakura being in love with Sasuke for like ages while he was on his like self-discovery journey, and then they end up together and he goes on to another journey of self-discovery. And what is her self-discovery journey? I mean, yes, she lived through a lot of things, but she was always like in love with Sasuke and she did everything because she wanted to get him back and make him safe. But that's not my answer. My answer is what? Vampire Academy. Vampire Academy was another like series that I read in middle school, and I was so involved in who Rose will end up being with. And there was this like love triangle situation going on at the end of the book, and I was rooting for the other guy, not like the main guy who turned bad and then good again, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, she ended up with the bad guy who turned out good, and not like the bad guy who was actually good but was kind of like a baddie, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I was very disappointed and don't want to talk about it. Next up we have my favorite love triangle. I was not reading young adult in the time that love triangles were popular, but I wrote here Wuthering Heights, which is, well, it has a love triangle, it could be called a love triangle. And since Wuthering Heights I read just recently and it ended up being one of my favorite books that I read in 2020, I will go with Wuthering Heights. And also Mr. Heathcliff is one of my favorite characters. So, you know, the love triangle that involves him will be my favorite love triangle. I don't know, let's move on. The last question of the Valentine's Day book tag is my favorite tragic love story, which also have prepared here. A Little Life is tragic in every way, and all of the relationships that are in there are tragic. And I don't mean just love stories. The story of a student and a mentor, the story of friendship, the love of a parent for a child. Every goddamn relationship and love story in any form is tragic in this book, and I love it. I love it for it. It's beautiful. So now I'm just gonna do a middle section of my discussion and existential crisis that I've been having with regards to reading, and then we'll jump ahead into the Anti-Valentine's Day book tag. Here we are, gathered today to discover the ultimate question. Is reading a waste of time? Yesterday and the days past I was going through Lord of the Rings, this huge, and I was feeling better because I was reading something hard, a classic of fantasy. And then I realized that we're all basically just gorging on content and that we're all basically wasting our lives. What is the difference between me reading Lord of the Rings and someone else binge watching Netflix TV shows? Like, what is the difference? This caused the slight existential crisis because I always thought reading was such a noble act. Reading, if you're a reader, you're smarter, your vocabulary is better, you have lived 1,000 lives. But in this day and age, we're all watching so many movies and TV shows and social media, and you can live a lot of lives through other media. So this kind of brought me to the realization that I'm just wasting my life living someone else's lives instead of my own. Or is that the case? So before I wrap up this discussion, I'm just gonna go now into Anti-Valentine's Day book tag, and I'm gonna answer these questions, and then I'm gonna tell you what I've come to realize. And don't worry, it's not existential crisis inducing as much. The reason I'm doing Valentine's and Anti-Valentine's is because I literally do not care about Valentine's Day. I just wanted to do something thematic, so here we are. A book where there is no love interest. And with this I answered my favorite thing is monsters, but basically, like a lot of books that I read have no love interest. But I answered with my favorite thing is monsters because it's a graphic novel. It's about this young girl investigating the murder of her neighbor who was a Holocaust survivor, and this young girl has a lot of problems of her own as well, and it's all happening in the 60s in Chicago. And it's a very social book as well, a very deep and emotion-inducing, which is always a good thing to have a shot of emotions in your veins through books. I don't know. So my favorite thing is monsters, has one volume out, and the second one is coming this year, so check it out. Next up we have a question about a book where romance is an afterthought, and for this my answer is Dune by Frank Herbert. In Dune we have this like slight romance between Paul and some other like character. I can't remember her name. I'm not a feminist. Paul is important, political intrigue is important, the whole world is important. I love Dune. It's one of my best books that I've read ever, and we have this romance and like I'm losing my voice. Next up we have a book with an overly cheesy romance, and I don't really read romance books. I don't really like them. Then I realized there was this book, like the worst book that I read last year in 2020, and it was by Sarah J Maas, The House of Earth and Blood. Yes, that's how it's called. I made myself read through the 800 pages of trash because I don't believe in making book reviews of books that person does not finish. So I finished it. The romance between the two main characters was so cheesy. You know, I wish I can say that I'm indifferent, but that would mean like the opposite of love, but I still kind of feel small sparks of hate towards it, because it won like the best adult fantasy on Goodreads, which I still can't believe. I am very bitter about it. Next we have a book where characters marry for convenience, not love, and that I would go with Hunger Games, and it's Peeta and Katniss, and my answer is The Hunger Games because I literally cannot think of any other book where characters marry for convenience, and this answer was stolen off of a blog where I found these questions. And lastly we have a book with a rose on the cover. The name of the rose. And this is not roses, but I will say it's like a Picasso-esque representation of roses on the cover. And The Name of the Rose is one of the favorite books, one of the best books that I've read last year, so I just wanna put it here for a quick book recommendation. but basically everyone has read it already. So if you haven't, in case you haven't, it's here. Very good. And now that we come to the end of this, I just wanna wrap up the discussion of Lord of the Rings and reading books, and is it really a time-wasting activity? It depends. It depends on the person who is reading. You can read like Lord of the Rings and literally take nothing out of it, not even a new word learned, and then you can read some trashy romance book and get to a realization that will help you in your life, in your travel, in your journey. So basically, if you are going into books with an intent to learn and to make something from them, you will do so. So yes, we've come to a bleak but not really conclusion, where I'm basically saying it depends on you, it depends on me, what and how I will use my time, and what I will draw from books that I read. Now, objectively speaking, are some books better than others? Yes. Yes, they are. There are hard books, there are books that are educational, and there are really trash books that are harmful to people. Overall, there are a lot of books, and as I said, it depends what you will do with your time and how you will spend it, that the book may help you in various ways. Lord of the Ring is definitely an escapist book, but it does have more complex sentences and prose and words, vocabulary, blah blah blah, plot, so your brain is more engaged than, for example, reading something that's you know, trash. There are books that you can read to fill your life with meaning, and then there are the others that will just make you waste your time, and time is so valuable. So no, reading is not wasting your time, but it can be. It depends on you. So this is a strange video. So this is a strange video.